Okay, let's unpack this. We are skipping right past the whole philosophical what if debate, and we're diving headfirst into the very real consequences of this discovery. The idea that our reality is a simulation. For so long, this was just a thought experiment. Now it's actually being debated in policy circles.
It's the ultimate context shift for, well, for all of human civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And for our deep dive today, we're pulling from a really fascinating stack of recent analyses. They're all published in the Parallel Observer. That's the publication from John Grant and his team at InnovateXR.
InnovateXR, right?
Exactly. And they have been meticulously documenting how our major institutions, we're talking courts, global powers, everything, are scrambling to adapt.
So the mission for you, our listeners, pretty simple. We're going to explore what happens when society just moves beyond the if, and starts drafting laws, designing therapies, realigning entire global alliances, all based on the fact that our reality might just be programmable. We are so far past the theory now. We're into the litigation.
And what's so compelling about these sources is how they take these, these abstract ideas and make them tangible. We're watching centuries of established norms just become obsolete in just a few years.
Okay, so let's start with the one pillar we always assume is stable, the justice system. The Parallel Observer had this investigation, the simulation investigation. Humanity faces a fork in the reality road. And it makes you wonder, what does a legal debate even look like when the fundamental premise of a crime, a physical act in a consistent reality, is just thrown into question?
It creates a foundational crisis, a complete one. For instance, the whole concept of jurisprudence, the entire philosophy of law, suddenly it's on shaky ground. If you can't guarantee that reality is consistent, then the court has to reconsider if laws, as we know them, even apply. I mean, if the whole framework is artificial, where does accountability truly lie?
So you're saying a defense lawyer walks into a courtroom and says, my client didn't do it, the simulation glitched, or maybe the creator made me do it.
That's exactly the scenario the courts are grappling with. And the sources detail these attempts to distinguish between, intentional human actions and some kind of external digital influence. The legal questions they're profound. They cut right to the heart of rights and responsibilities.
The courts have to maintain some standard of free will, right?
Right.
Otherwise, the whole system just collapses.
They try. They absolutely try. But the analysis suggests this whole revelation forces a debate over whether justice now has to factor in the actions of the creators, whether those creators are advanced AI or something else entirely. The shift is away from a world that's centered only on individual free will.
And toward what?
Toward one that questions the very legitimacy of any choice we make, if that choice was maybe pre-programmed or influenced from outside.
Hang on. If we can prove an external influence, how does the system even establish a burden of proof? Do we need like a forensic digital analyst to determine if a glitch happened or if the creator actively intervened?
Exactly. You're shifting from proving intent to proving digital cause. The key insight here is that even if a crime happens in our layer of reality, the motive might actually exist in the creator's layer. The Parallel Observer suggests that courts might soon have to differentiate, between an unpredictable simulation accident, a glitch, which could lessen a sentence, and malicious programming by the creator, which would transfer responsibility completely.
And this is why you should care.
Right, because the foundation of your own accountability every day, from signing a contract to driving your car, it's suddenly dependent on the stability of a code you cannot see.
That is genuinely unsettling. So if the courts can't anchor reality, where do we go? Let's move from that abstract legal fallout to something intensely personal, physical. Another article, Health in a Virtual Paradigm, detailed the human cost. What happens to our health when detachment becomes the new normal?
The emotional and mental health fallout it's severe. We were seeing a really unique set of challenges being documented across the globe. If you start to question the validity of your own reality, your whole sense of well-being is now tied up with understanding how this reality affects your psyche. Psychiatrists are dealing with totally new diagnoses, like simulation detachment syndrome. Patients just start ignoring real physical symptoms.
Wow. I can just imagine that detachment leading to real danger. Like, why bother treating cancer if the body and the disease are just code?
That is the core danger, exactly. If people believe their physical symptoms or even their medical treatments are somehow invalid because they're happening in let's say, a non-primary reality, It just leads to apathy, neglect, a failure to get help. The emotional cost is this loss of purpose, of urgency. If nothing matters, why try?
This sounds catastrophic, but the sources didn't just stop there, did they? They also pointed toward technology stepping in to help, which is ironic, to say the least.
It is the ultimate technological paradox, isn't it? The analysis highlighted the potential for augmented and mixed reality AR and XR therapies. The goal isn't to fix the simulation. You can't. It's to help people reconnect mentally and emotionally with their experiences as meaningful, to foster real engagement despite the digital context. We use technology to ground ourselves in our own local reality.
That's a perfect bridge, actually, into the role of these AR and XR technologies. Which brings us to another article, Beyond Digital Reality, the AR-XR Revolution. And I'm trying to be optimistic here. If our base reality is now suspect, can AR and XR be the tools that let us build a new reality? One that's localized, trustworthy, engaging?
That's exactly the hope that the sources express. The primary function of AR and XR in this new world is to bridge that gap.
The gap between what we perceive
And this overwhelming existential doubt we're all feeling about what's real. These technologies offer these incredible opportunities for authentic engagement. They let people layer on new information, reinforce shared stories, build communities that feel undeniably real.
So we use technology to actively create a sense of shared purpose, even if the ground beneath our feet is questionable. It's like using a really beautiful filter to make sure we all agree on the color of the sky.
That's the enhancement side of it, yes.
Yeah.
And it's essential for society to function. But this is where the sources introduce a really crucial note of caution. And this is the critical balance for you to consider. There is a very, very fine line between using augmented reality for genuine enhancement, which restores our sense of connection and purpose, and relying on it for pure escapism.
Right. The warning in the Parallel Observer was about relying too much on these tailored, curated realities.
Precisely. If we become overly dependent on these augmented experiences, we risk losing touch with our actual lived experience. Completely. We could end up with a society where individuals just retreat into their own personalized digital bubbles, bubbles that fulfill their every desire. And that would eliminate the need for authentic human connection, for conflict resolution, for any kind of shared struggle.
Which just brings us right back to the detachment problem we were talking about, but with better graphics. So the takeaway here has to be that balancing this tech adoption with maintaining authenticity, with staying committed to the messy reality we see with our own eyes. That's going to be the defining challenge.
Absolutely. The choices we make about how much technology mediates our existence, they're not just economic anymore. They're existential.
And finally, we have to zoom out to the global scale. The geopolitics, the article Geopolitical Turns in a Simulated Reality suggests that nations are fundamentally realigning their core interests. It's not about oil or borders anymore. It's about existential philosophy. How does a belief in a simulation spark actual international conflict?
It's truly dramatic. The tensions are rising because different nations have fundamentally different official stances on the simulation hypothesis, or just different levels of acceptance. And that creates an immediate split in their foreign and domestic policy.
Can you give us an example of that split?
Sure. Some nations are just. They're embracing the technological advancements, especially AR and XR. They see them as the way to understand the simulation, maybe even exploit it or escape it. They see this embracing of a digital fate as progress, so they pour resources into advanced computing, reality manipulation. Their goal is maximum optimization, maximum influence inside the system.
And their counterparts, the nations that resist.
While others, often those with more established centralized power structures, they fear that this radical tech advancement could undermine their control, undermine their traditional values, their national identity. They see this new technology as a vector for instability. They worry that foreign governments could create augmented realities that subtly change their own local history or political perceptions among their citizens.
So it's the classic clash, progress versus tradition. But the stakes now are whether we accept a digital future that's designed somewhere else.
Exactly. And this split is leading to new international alliances, new treaties, based not on geography or resources, but on a shared understanding or a radical misunderstanding of our digital fate. We are seeing geopolitical blocs forming simply based on simulation acceptance versus simulation denial. National security is being rewritten to prevent digital interference, to secure cultural narratives inside this questionable reality.
Wow. Okay. Let's bring this all back home. What does this deep dive mean for us, for the individual trying to navigate all this? We've seen how this revelation touches everything. The justice system, public health, technology, global power, everything we thought we knew.
It forces an intense period of self-reflection.
Yeah.
Has to. And based on the parallel observer's growing focus on augmented realities and mental health, I predict the emerging focus globally will be on validating personal narratives. When our collective reality is in question, the only absolute truth you possess is your own lived experience, your story, your memory, your connection to the people around you.
That's a really powerful final thought. The stability of the external world is gone, so the internal world has to become the anchor.
The challenge for you now is to keep questioning the reality around you, but not just philosophically, actively, by seeking out authentic connection, true purpose in this shifting landscape. You need to stay incredibly vigilant about these discussions happening globally, because the debates over digital fate, technological limits, creator accountability, they're shaping the ethics and standards we live by right now. That vigilance is key, because your personal narrative might be the only non-simulated thing you have left. Stay curious.
We certainly will. Until next time, keep thinking outside the simulated box.